All right, also passes unanimously. Wonderful. Okay. All right, Laura is also just joining us now. And Laura is our rep from the board. And I loved your email, Laura, that you said you're Laura Boomer. Can you hear us, Laura? Let's see. Oh, she's muted.
Oh.
Can you hear us now, Laura?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, perfect. If there's anyone else that is muted and doesn't know how to unmute themselves, please let me know. All right, I'm going to head back over to our agenda for today.
Sorry to interrupt. What happened with Priyangi?
You know, I was going back and forth by email with her. Let me see if she's...
It just kept saying the host needed to let me in. I tried about 7 times since about 2:10. So I don't know if there's a glitch or what.
Yeah, let me see. So I don't see her in the waiting room. Let me send her another note.
How is everyone?
Good.
I'm not sick. There's that.
Yes, I'll second that.
Yeah. We have an au pair to help us with childcare during the day. It sounds much more fancy than it is. But right now was her time to actually go home. But because of all the travel restrictions, she's going to be staying with us, it looks like, for another month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we have another au pair coming, so we'll have a very full house.
Sounds like you and your husband can take lots of long walks.
Yes, romantic walks around the block.
I can't imagine. There's this guy that lives in my neighborhood. I see him walking every day, and he's got 2 toddlers, and I can't imagine trying to work at home with 2 toddlers roaming around at your feet.
Oh my gosh.
It just seems excruciating. I mean, my kid's 14 and he's driving me to drink, and I don't drink.
That's funny. You know, I'm not sure what's happening with Priyangi right now. So I sent her my cell phone number just in case she needed help. And she's not in the waiting room right now. So Laura, for you, you kept trying to join and it wasn't letting you join?
It said the host will connect you shortly or something like that. It kept giving me this prompt. And anyway, I'm in now. Not that you need me, but my other meeting ended a little earlier.
Happy to have you. I was just wanting to make sure that if there was something going on that I might be able to help. We have one more person that's trying to join. Okay, I'm going to keep an eye out because normally I'll get a little note that pops up that says somebody is trying to join. And then I also gave her my cell phone number. But, okay.
Wait, it looks like Niyet is in here now, right?
Right. That's our budget analyst. But Priyangi is a parent that also volunteered to be on the committee.
Okay.
Oh, here she is. Great. All right. Hi, Priyangi. So happy that you made it over. Can you hear us?
It says, there.
There we go. Priyangi, can you hear us? Let me see if I can.
Yeah, okay.
Priyangi, are you having trouble with the mute button?
Let me see.
Oh, perfect. We can hear you now.
Oh, good.
So happy you made it over. All right, I'm going to hop back over to our agenda for today. So Priyangi, we just quickly reviewed the bylaws a little bit and the major items of kind of the purpose of the Parcel Tax Committee, that it's to make sure that the district is spending money in the way that was listed for the parcel tax. And then we selected a chair, vice chair, and secretary.
Okay.
And then now on to the fun part, our presentation for today. And let me pull up the presentation so everyone can see it. Okay. All right. So this is the ballot language from Measure B. And I won't read it out loud, but you can kind of take a look at what it is that we should be spending our money on for this parcel tax. You know, and I want to make sure to say thank you again for participating in this, because this is definitely, it's one step removed from kids. And I think when we talk about when teachers make the transition into being a principal or a coach, the positive feedback that you get from doing that is not as great, because normally positive feedback comes from interacting and working with the kids. And there's no interaction with kids right now, but this is very, very much impacts the district and impacts what we can do for kids. So thank you. It's much appreciated. All right, this is a quick look at a table that shows how we've spent it. So you'll notice that we're going back to the 17-18 and 18-19 year of how we spent the funds. Normally, we meet a couple of times a year to look at how the parcel tax monies were spent. But Dr. Clark had to take a leave of absence. And during that time, we didn't meet to go over how the money was spent. So we're taking a look at it now. This table was also attached at the bottom of the agenda, so you could look at it ahead of time. All right, let me talk a little bit about the programs that it funds. So after school enrichment is one of the programs. So each school site provides after school enrichment based on the needs of the school. Examples of programs include chorus, STEAM, creative writing, cartooning, coding, and art. And this is really left up to the individual school on how they want to spend the money for the after school enrichment. Another program it supports is Square Panda. So teachers, this is a computer program that allows kids to explore phonemic awareness. What's really unique about this program is it levels for the kids. So a lot of the programs that are a little bit, that are used in other places, it's not individualized to the kids. So if a student understands or can identify the letter A, it moves on to the next letter. It also works on letter sounds, and it's research-based. So when the kids are blending the words, it blends it correctly, which is not always the case with apps that you can easily download for iPad. So this is a really, really good program, especially for our kinder and first grade students. Another neat thing about it is it's tactile. So you'll see in the picture down below, the kids actually can pick up the letters and put it on the Square Panda board. And then it also tells them if it's upside down or right side up. So that's a unique aspect to Square Panda. It helps support PE for 1st through 5th grade, and students are served by credentialed PE teachers. This is above and beyond of what some districts do. So all elementary school teachers are credentialed to teach PE, but we're bringing in specifically credentialed PE teachers, so they get more variety and have the subject matter expertise. The parcel tax also helps fund our at-risk, I want to say, they have a special term, not individuals, but they help monitor students who are at risk to provide needed supports. And they work on creating relationships with family and staff to make sure that there's that good homeschool connection. And then they work with our counselors to identify students that are in need of services.
Aren't they like coordinators?
Yes, at-risk coordinators. Thank you. Thanks, Cleve.
I was trying to remember who it was at Crittenden who did that. Yeah.
Yes. It also helps fund our art and music program. Students receive art and music programming through CSMA, and then CSMA provides subject matter expertise in both art and music. Again, this is above and beyond what other districts are able to do sometimes. All of our elementary school teachers are credentialed to teach art and music, but it really makes a huge difference when you have someone that this is their passion and that they're teaching both music and art.
Rebecca, what percentage of that is funded by the parcel tax versus MVF? Because MVF
Yes.
picks up a big piece of that too, right?
Yes, I can go back to
Or just roughly.
Nadia maybe. Oh, is Nadia on or Nuet? Here we go. So here is, so when we're reading this, so our actuals is what we have collected right now, for example, because we are just going to collect our second portion of property taxes, what we expect, what's been encumbered. And then, so it looks like about 307 we're planning for the art program to be paid by Measure B, but it comes in at 435.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to clarify, we're thinking of the same role. The at-risk that we were just talking about is the SCEF at the elementary level, School and Community Engagement Facilitator?
Different.
Different.
Yes. So we have at-risk and then we have SCEFs. So two different positions. It also supports our middle school counselors and CHAC. So each middle school has a counselor that works with students on social and emotional needs. This is a relatively new position for the district, but it's been very, very helpful, and the counselor schedules have been completely full. And CHAC provides intern counselors to each elementary school. It also helps support our support staff and custodial staff. So our front office staff supports vital services for school sites, including referrals for counseling, referrals for support services for families, and they're the first point of contact for students and parents. And our custodial staff ensures that the environment is clean, safe, and welcoming to students to provide the optimal environment for student learning. And shout out to our custodial staff during what's been going on right now. I think even before school shut down, they were sanitizing the schools using special machines to make sure that everything was safe and clean for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on how the parcel tax money is spent? Okay. Now,
I wonder, in looking at the Measure B ballot language, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the point of maintaining small class sizes, if that's being addressed yet with Measure B funds.
So we are maintaining small class sizes. So for the lower grades, it's 1 to 24. And then in terms of like how small, I think we try to keep them as small as, tell me more about what you're asking before I ramble on.
Sure, just in the different areas listed in this paragraph of the ballot language, you can kind of match certain items to the spreadsheet of how it's being spent. And I guess I just don't see the small class sizes being represented in the spreadsheet, but maybe it is in ways that I just don't understand or see. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes. So I think ideally we would love to have much smaller class sizes. You're right, though, it's not represented well in our spreadsheet. I think we could say that it helps maintain smaller class sizes because we're supporting art and music programs. But that's something that we can take into account moving forward.
Well, and can I jump in for just a second, Rebecca?
Sure.
Historically, when we draft this language, when we're doing a ballot measure, it is intentionally drafted very broadly so that, you know, many permissible uses that the tax funding could fund many permissible uses. And there's times when things will crop up that you didn't even envision when you had that ballot measure pass, but it's a real need. And, if the language is drafted broadly enough, then some of the funds could be used to fund that need that you didn't realize that you had at the time. And so I believe that when this ballot measure was approved, it was with the intention that it'd be very broad so that it could be applied in a number of different ways. So not everything that's listed on there would necessarily be reflected in what the actual expenditures are.
So Laura, if I understand you correctly, basically what you're saying is that these are allowable uses, but our role on this committee isn't to necessarily make sure that it's being sprinkled evenly among the allowable uses. I mean, the board is the ultimate decider as to the resource allocation.
Right. What you say is my understanding, and Rebecca, jump in here, but I think that the committee needs to make sure that they're not using these funds to do something that is not on this list, as opposed to making sure that funds are used for all of the things on the list.
And our involvement occurs after the fact, not before. So we're sort of auditing, if anything.
I think yes, Laura, that's a good point. Typically the ballot language is broad. So if there is a need that we're able to address that need, the same thing for Measure T, the Measure T for the bond, it's broad. So that way, if something comes up, we're able to address that. But the ballot language, for example, if you saw that administrator salaries were how we were spending the money, it would be the committee's job to say, nope, that's not what the money was intended for, and call that out.
May I also ask, so with respect to class size, is ratio of teacher to student sort of roped into that idea? In other words, if you can't have a small enough class size that you'd like to get to, would the money be able to fund an additional teacher to float for classrooms that are affected that way?
I think that would be a reasonable use of the money if that's how we decide, if we wanted to apply it that way. I think something that's interesting to note about the number of teachers we have working in the district. So we're always looking at what's happening around the county as comparison. And as a comparison, we employ more teachers per student than most other districts. We may not see it in the individual classrooms, but we have response to intervention. So that's an extra teacher and a half to 2 teachers per school site that is effectively lowering the class size, even though the class size, for example, in a first grade classroom might still be 24:1. They have teachers that are pushing in and allow the class size to seem smaller during particular points of instruction. So that's a good point to bring up, Cleve. So we definitely employ more teachers per student than most other school districts. I think we're ranked at number 3 in the county, which is pretty impressive.
My student was one of the beneficiaries of that policy, so thank you.
Happy to hear.
I have a question about on the budget. It says routine maintenance and operations, and so thinking about how it aligns to the language on the ballot, sort of thinking about that, $200,000 expense. I don't know. Maybe you can just clarify how the routine maintenance operations for $200,000 is reflected in the ballot language, or
sure,
just reconciling.
Yeah, and this is something that we had an internal conversation about a few weeks ago. And I think broadly, when we look at the ballot language, we're supporting students to support the core academics, because in order to learn, you need to have a clean environment. And so that's how it was interpreted. But there's lots of costs that we can put under the parcel tax. And I think what we might do for this next year, that's how it was interpreted, but I think we might move that out and then move in some RTI teacher cost under the parcel tax, just to make it, I think, a little cleaner. But I think the parcel tax could still be interpreted as providing an environment for students to learn in.
Yeah, I think the RTI would be a really nice alignment for it. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Are there other questions about how the parcel tax is being used?
Well, I do have a question, not so much how it's being used, but given like the current environment with essentially the shutdown of our economy, how is that being factored into future budgeting and expenditures? Got a column for actual and encumbrances. I know that all these numbers are based on assumptions that people will pay on time.
Really good question. I think all districts right now are kind of grappling with how the budgets are going to be impacted. We still expect to receive all of our property taxes. I think we are in a much better position than districts that are not basic aid. We are still collecting property taxes. Our budget for AV growth will not probably be hit until maybe a couple years out. In terms of like cost savings, we'll see some cost savings for probably over time. We are still paying all of our teachers because they're still working, pushing out curriculum. So we won't really see any savings in that area for the parcel tax in particular. So if I go back, is that what you're asking about, Braid?
Well, actually, that's a good point. Yeah, I imagine that there's going to be less expenses incurred for some categories, but my original question was just simply, and maybe you're going to find out within the next week, given that taxes are due today. But I would imagine that there's going to be some percentage of taxpayers that are going to be delinquent for some period of time, and you've got a budget that you've got to work with, and I just wonder how that's being factored in. That's all.
Right.
I could chime in on that. So with the county assessor, they have taken the schools in what's called the teeter plan. It was done in the late 40s, which allows the county to borrow money to be sure that the schools get their revenue in light of delinquent taxpayers. So there was a time earlier in the last century where delinquent taxes would impact the schools as far as their funding. So again, it's called the teeter plan, and it allows the funding even with delinquent taxes to come in.
I think the benefit for school districts is we have continuity in funding, and then the county, if they get any additional monies from sending it out to collections, they get to keep that money. So our budget will be stable.
Good to hear.
Indeed.
So what other major issues or key issues are we as a committee to expect in the future? What are we going to address?
Hopefully nothing. Hopefully we spend everything the way that the parcel tax was intended to. So that your job is to look to make sure that we've done that. But what we could do is, if the committee is interested in hearing about other items that relate to the parcel tax and budget overall, we can do that too.
Well, I think, sorry.
Yep.
I think one question, I know we don't have an answer to this yet, is what the governor alluded to about how we'll change, I guess, operationally everything in schools moving forward, and how that will impact all of this. Specifically things like social distancing within the classrooms, maybe rolling starts.
I think we are adjusting as it comes. I think every day we're getting new bulletins. I don't have a good answer yet, other than everyone's figuring it out as we go. Every district's in the same position. I think what is really good for our district is we're in Mountain View, so we have the ability, we've had lots of support. Google, for example, just gave us $100,000 to help support distance learning. So we are in an environment where if there is a specific need, that will be able to fill that need. We just ordered $48,000 worth of hotspots to provide to students that don't have internet in their homes. because part of our responsibility is to make sure that kids have access. So, you know, we're in a place where we're able to do that. So whatever it looks like in September, we'll be able to take whatever the governor gives us and then implement.
And will distance learning be a part of this budget, or do you have that slated for elsewhere?
So you know, in some ways that it's part of the parcel tax because we're still offering music, we're still offering PE. So yes, very much part of distance learning, because we were trying to make sure that everything the kids would have gotten in school, that they're getting outside of school. You know, it's not perfect. I think everyone is adjusting as it comes. And as we go, I'm sure we're going to continue to make adjustments. And I think all the districts what's really neat to see right now is all the districts in the county are exchanging information and talking about best practices, what's working, what's not working. So that's been very helpful.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions? Yeah, it's definitely been a very interesting time to make sure that kids get educated.
Yes.
And it keeps on being interesting.
Yes. Okay. Jonathan, as our newly elected chair, did you want to make a motion?
Yes, I can motion to adjourn.
Oh, I think you need to, we need to
sorry.
accept the
Got ahead of myself.
too excited.
6.3.
6.3.
Yes. Yes. For 6.3 to accept it, the motion.
Yep, motion to receive the information as presented.
Yes, I'll motion it.
Well, then I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The motion passes unanimously. And then are there any future agenda items requested? Okay. No future agenda items. You know, if we want, after we adjourn, I'm happy to chat about other things that are going on in the district if the committee's interested. But, all right.
That'll be great.
Jonathan, did you want to officially adjourn us?
Oh, do we need
Sure,
to any future meetings, or have you already decided?
You know, to be honest, I haven't penciled in the new dates because things are so fluid right now. I think initially this committee was going to meet in the evenings, but given everyone's situations, it seemed like daytime was better for most. So we'll meet probably 2 times. We'll meet 2 times a year. And as we figure out what's going to happen in September, I will send out a note to everyone on some dates and times, similar to what I did this time.
Okay.
Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right, Jonathan, would you like to officially adjourn us?
Oh, yes. Sorry, the 7-year-old's right behind me. Yes, motion to adjourn.
Is there a second to adjourn our meeting at 2:48?
Cleve will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations on our first Parcel Tax Oversight Committee.
And thanks to those of you stepping up to chair and vice chair and take
Yes.
office roles. And thanks to everybody for doing this.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. You're not quite the boomer you make yourself out to be.
I would agree with that. Are there any general questions? I mean, since we're all together.
Well, I was going to say, as I read like things in The Voice and I listen to other parents, I see it feels like parents, you know, when they're expressing ire in various places and complaining about the process and how it's going, it doesn't really seem like they're complaining about the district or us. It seems like they're complaining about, oh, I have to now assist in my kids' education all day long, and it's not as easy as I thought it was, and it makes me mad. And so I'm going to complain about the way the district is doing it because it's all I can do. And I mean, that's what I feel like, because that's how I feel here. Like, my kid's next door in the next room playing video games, and he's supposed to be in a class, I think, right? But I'm also sitting here working. I don't have time to deal with him, and at 14, he kind of needs to deal with it himself. But if you have younger kids, I mean, you kind of have to pay attention, and it feels like that's a really difficult thing to maneuver.
I guess I would completely agree with that. It seems it's more the juggling, making sure a 7-year-old doesn't fall off the couch right now, and less of how the schools are being run and the instruction that our kids get.
Yeah, I think that's something that we were trying to be really mindful of. Initially, when we started with the packets because we weren't sure we didn't know how long we were going to be out. So we had packets to kind of get us through. We thought maybe a 2-week closure. And then it turned into being longer. So creating a plan that was trying to balance helping parents, and then teachers are in the same position that parents are in right now, where they're trying to work from home. So trying to set up guidelines of how many hours a day do we expect the kids to be on task, knowing that parents have to make sure kids are on task.
Right.
So I think it's tough to strike that balance. And I really can't imagine. I know it's hard for everyone right now.
Well, in terms of logistics, we just learned that, our internet plan has a limitation on, the hotspot data.
No.
All of a sudden you get a little message saying you got 10% left, and the cycle starts over on the 21st or whatever, and it just dawns on you, there's a finite number of resources, or you can always expand the plan,
right?
But maybe not everybody's in the position to be able to do that.
They said that I should say Comcast said that they expanded everybody's data ability until I don't know, the end of May or something. Probably not true.
Well, and I was going to ask Rebecca, I know that at least in the board meeting a couple of weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, whenever that was, there was discussion about the devices and tablets were an issue, but one that was kind of more solvable, but that the internet with hotspots or broadband was more of a challenge. And you said that you just ordered $48,000 worth of hotspots. Are there other, I've been hearing from city council members that the city's trying to work on something.
Yeah, we're trying to do multiple different things. So we ordered the hotspots, which John had to track down because all districts are trying to order these now. So he tracked down a vendor. He set up stations. Offhand, I can't remember which schools they're at, but he had set up stations at, I want to say 4 different schools. So let's say they weren't able to get internet. So we handed out Comcast cards for free internet so parents could sign up. But we were also concerned about the ability of parents to be able to sign up for Comcast, because that also takes an additional step. And if a parent is either working or overwhelmed with caring for children at home, that could be an insurmountable step. So he set up Wi-Fi at the schools. So a parent could drive up, and I want to say it's within a 1 mile radius or half-mile radius, and park, and then have internet around the school as well.
Well, that's great.
So
because I've also been hearing that Comcast, people try to call to get through, and they're on hold for 4 hours.
Right. Oh, I'm sure that's the case. Yeah. And then also the Xfinity is opened up for people as well. So, and we enabled all of our Chromebooks that we handed out to be able to access Xfinity. But we noticed that there are some dark areas in Mountain View, specifically in the areas where kids probably need it around Castro. So that's why our tech team went out and made it so people could drive within a half mile radius to get the internet.
I think the city of Mountain View also upped their Wi-Fi in the downtown area. I don't know if that's helpful at all.
Yeah. So, I think there's a lot that goes into planning, trying to make sure everyone gets access that isn't always visible on the surface. Even with our teachers, We have some teachers that are all over technology and we're ready to go. And then we have some teachers that, they teach using traditional methods. One is not better than the other, but they just haven't been used to using technology. So that was also a learning curve for some of our teachers.
Do you foresee using technology more like next year as well, or it's just gonna be like face-to-face teacher?
We'll see what happens. I mean, we are just taking the information as it comes from the governor and about ways to address social distancing, and it changes every day. When we first shut down, we thought, okay, maybe 2 weeks. And then it turned into a longer period. And then the school districts, I think we get notice of maybe, depending on what the change is, maybe a day ahead of time from when the general public gets it. But the situation is really fluid.
If you guys could only have like students within 6 feet of each other, that is going to make for some really small class sizes.
Yes, it could. Or some very interesting recess times. And even for food service, we've talked about how are we going to serve lunch to kids? And I made a joke with our director, Debbie. I said, we got to package it like a football. And, we're going to practice our PE skills of catching your lunch on the fly. But I think there's all sorts of ways that we can adapt and, work around this. Because I know that at least from the news, like this is not going away anytime soon because we don't have a vaccine yet. That's me just talking from the news, not anything official, but.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's great. I'm watching our kids, both of them, learning the technology and becoming actually really proficient. One thing that kind of makes me a little nervous is the 8-year-old likes to click on anything that comes up. And, I'm not always watching or able to, we don't always have somebody that's, capable of watching what he's clicking on. And if he's allowing access to this or, this, you wonder about security concern, about keeping up security and.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
I saw him the other day and he created a username and it was his actual name, those sorts of things. And so, it's when you catch it early on and it's not a problem, it's a teachable moment. But, if you've got, I can't remember how many students are in the district, but there's a lot of students out there, clicking on things.
And I think the school Chromebooks have secure in it, so we get. I don't know whether they still have the
maybe
in like the ones that got delivered. Like my older daughter has a Chromebook, and I think we get information email with all the information of the sites they've visited and things like that. So
maybe I'll reach out to John. I know that when the kids are on our internet, like it's filtered and then we can see kind of what the kids have been up to.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll ask John about if there's an easy way for parents to, install filters on their own home internet, just to help make sure the kids aren't going places they shouldn't go. Because I'm almost positive there's an easy way to filter your home internet.
I think it's a component of Xfinity if you have their service, but you guys also had, which I thought was pretty useful, a system that sort of sent me an email every week and it told me what websites he went to and how long he was on it. That was pretty useful. My older son, which he went to school in a different state, at their school, they had that unthinkable incident where a kid clicked on a link in a class and the unthinkable came up and it was like a big, thing in the school. So I'm sure that's